be down there. Oh, cool. Thanks. Hi, whoever you are. Having a terrible time with my heart being out of tune, but I'm just gonna have to give up for a while. I've been trying to tune it for 2 hours, so I'm just practicing. And if anybody shows up and has some natural health questions, I'm available. I'm the author of Eating My Way to Heaven. I co-founded the first sugar detox center in the country. I cured myself from cancer. I was dying in a menopause at 38 and ate my way to heaven, out of the grave, out of menopause, and had my first baby at 47, who's now going on 12, laying over there. So I did it despite the medical profession. I beat cancer totally on my own, and you can go to my YouTube channel and see if you can handle it, really gruesome video of the cancer I had and how I got it to go away. Wow, this is kind of cool, huh? I really love my lights. So my dream is to share the natural healing information and experience and stories that I have with a vast audience without leaving home and abandoning my son. And I've included comedy and music and sound therapy in my routine. I'm not in the mood for comedy tonight. I've been struggling to tune this heart for so long this evening that I'm just not in a comedic mood. So I'm going to try again to play a song and see if it's too bad that I'm going to give up and just talk. But I've really been aching to play this thing. So welcome to Laughing in the Face of Cancer. And the idea is to distribute natural healing information in a fun, entertaining way with music, comedy, and just a fireside chat about how we get well. So. too bad. But it is out of tune. It's kind of hard to listen to. So I think I'm going to stop for a minute. Hi, everyone. So I'm Denise. Let me turn a light on so you can see my face. It's a little better. I'm Denise, and I'm here to help anybody who has health questions. Chances are you are, if you have any kind of illness, you're struggling with a sugar addiction, and I'm an expert on that. Weight loss. I was bulimic for 16 years. I understand food addiction totally. And I'm an addict, totally an addict. If I touch something, I'm going to overdo it, even with the heart and exercise and good things. I just overdo everything. And in some cases, it pays off. I've only been playing for 2 months, and I got a repertoire of pretty cool songs for a beginner. But sometimes addiction can just totally kick your ass. So I have to work with mine. I'm addicted to the foods I eat now instead of the things that were killing me at 38. So I found ways to work with my addiction, but I can't ignore it, can't go into denial, and I can't expose myself to things that I don't control well. So that's part of the game. So laughing in the face of cancer, I want to tell you about my cancer journey. It is my total belief that cancer, like all degenerative disease, is our failure to truly embrace our emotions and work through to the other side. So when that simmering emotion, whatever it is, a heartache, an abuse in childhood, a traumatic car accident, whatever that you're sitting on that's bigger than you can handle, and you're really not dealing with it, it's deep in there, that becomes the disease. And you feed that disease with bad habits. Let me give you, for instance, I worked with a wealthy MS patient. And I know we were talking about cancer, but to me, all degenerative disease is the same, and I just thought of her. And I asked her when I first interviewed her, so, how was your life going when you were diagnosed with MS? Is there anything you can identify that may have triggered this? If you can embrace my theory that, a traumatic emotion might be at the bottom of this. And she said, no, everything was going really great, Life was good. Well, except that my husband cheated on me. Well, bingo, that's a huge emotion. And the way she rolled it out, it was like, talking about how her toast was at breakfast. She hadn't processed that emotion at all. And then as we got deeper into it, then she turned around and cheated on him and had guilt. So she had anger, grief, shame, and guilt. And boom, right at the time in her life, she starts going down with MS. So in order to get well from MS, and in the midst of that depression and that angst and that trauma of her husband cheating on her and her, doing her own discretions and all of that, she turned to things like alcohol, cigarettes, bad food, whatever, like many of us do. And so it's the emotion, and then the emotion attacks the toxic lifestyle, the habit, the drug addiction, the alcohol, the sex, the gambling, whatever's going to tear up your life. And so in order to turn that around, whether it's stage 4 cancer, or you're trying to lose 50 pounds, or you're diabetic, doesn't matter. The answer is the same. You have to be willing to accept that you created this illness by not processing your emotions efficiently and not treating your temple with love and care. And therefore, if you own it, if you say, I did this, then you can change it. If you're a victim, if God did it to you, or if it just happened, I take good care of myself, this cancer is just an accident. If you're not willing to own it, then you probably can't beat it. So first you have to own it. Then you have to dig deep, right down into the pain and grab a hold of it and get it out. Be willing to look at it, be willing to release it while you change your lifestyle. And the combination of those things will cure anything. We'll tell you stories over the course of these broadcasts. I'm going to broadcast every night at 11 and Sundays at 3. and I'm in Oregon on Pacific Standard Time. And just do what I do as a life coach and a speaker and a comedian and now newly a musician. But mostly I like to talk to people about health and share my experiences. So it starts with owning it, and that's the hard part, but that's how you get out. That's the only way you get out. Is otherwise, I was a victim of incest. Pretty horrific, long-standing incest in a rich, powerful family where I just felt really helpless to address it. And I had to accept that I could get my power back from that. Those deep, simmering emotions, that pain, that horror that, you can't process as a 6-year-old or a 4-year-old or whatever, that simmers up and it becomes disease if you don't look at it. So I had to be willing to dive in that and look at that pain. I had to really open that book in order to get well the first time when I was dying at 38. At 57, and actually it was a couple of years of a gruesome role with cancer. I knew exactly what caused it. As an expert who had been working with other people, I didn't have the luxury of denial, but I got screwed over really bad. You don't need all the details. Shit happened. My life went sideways because of a friend and a trust that was broken, and it was very painful. I was angry. I was grieving. Just about put me and my son on the street. Devastated my life. So I didn't deal with it well. And consequently, what had been a really slow, simmering, rarely a big deal case of skin cancer became a golf ball size event on my face. And you can go to my YouTube channel, and I have a 58-second video of that golf ball going down in 90 days with the life skills I'm sharing with you. But it's gruesome, so don't watch unless you can stand it. But it was grief, it was anger, and on top of that, I had been living on coffee. I smoked too much pot most of the time, but that dehydrates you. And I'd had bad habits during that trauma. So when this happened, and I knew it was, I'm going to go from here to a gruesome role in a hospital or die, I have to change my life today. I knew the first thing I had to do was figure out how to forgive and process this anger, because the other person wasn't suffering, who did me so dirty, it was killing me. So I had to find forgiveness, and then I had to get back in the garden, and I was fortunate that I had a beautiful Eden garden with supernatural foods, life-giving, energized foods to turn to, and I lived on hot bell peppers, raw cabbage, broccoli, whatever I could get out of the garden. And as you'll see in the video, in 90 days, that enormous cancer bump went down. And I've worked with stage 4 cancer. I've worked with people who had diabetes so bad they were dying or their feet were being cut off. I've worked with everything, AIDS, you name it, heart disease, depression. Everybody that makes some very subtle shifts towards more natural in their life owns their health. This is my vibrating bag of water. This is my temple. And if I destroy it, where will I live? So when we take total responsibility, I can't say I can do it all the time. I reach for crap now and then. But I'm educated. I know what I'm doing. And when I slip and consume something that I know is harmful to my body, I also know how to turn around and do things to help it, to alkalize it, to mineralize it, to hydrate it, whatever it is I've done, and probably all three, to help turn around my health again. So I just want to share those simple life-saving tips. So we are what we eat, what we drink, and what we believe. So I believe that we can cure cancer. I believe we can cure anything. So let me start by telling you a story, a professional story of why I believe that, and so you can join me in that belief. I was working with a woman who had late-stage cancer, and she had already had one breast removed, and she had a tumor where that breast had been. She was bald from the chemotherapy. She was thin and frail. And she was a macrobiotic chef instructor. So she knew healthy food. Macrobiotics is a cancer healing diet. And she not only knew how to do it, she taught it. And she was wealthy, so she's running around the world trying everything the medical profession threw out, every natural healing thing she could try, and she was still dying. So I came into her life, and at the time I was, and still am, doing didgeridoo treatments on people. Didgeridoo is just a tube. I'll get mine out in a minute and show you after I tell this story. It's sound therapy. The vibration penetrates the body, and it can move a kidney stone or, change a heartbeat. It's a moving wave that enters the body, and it's very meditative and peaceful. So I showed up to do a treatment on her. I put her in the bathtub fully clothed just because the acoustics are so good. And I played this bizarre instrument over her, very close to her body, as the sound waves rolled over her. And as I was doing it, I got a message. And I have a psychic gift, which you'll read about in my book if you go to eatingmywaytoheaven.com. But I got a message. And so I said to her, I believe you've been sexually abused. And she said, well, I looked at that. And she had hired a psychologist. She had hired a hypnotherapist. She tried digging for what might have been hidden memories. And she said, I couldn't find anything. I said, well, I think you need to look again or it's going to kill you. And I finished my treatment and wished her good luck and left. And that was the end of my relationship with her. And then I bumped into her in church about 3 months later. And she was robust, with a full head of hair and rosy cheeks, and she came to me and she said, you were right. It was my brother. And we worked through it together, and I'm in remission. So that long buried sexual abuse had eventually become deadly breast cancer for her. And she was going to die no matter what. She was traveling all over the world trying everything. But once she found the emotion that she had been molested by her brother, and God bless her, when she approached him, he copped to it and they worked through it together. And she already knew the lifestyle stuff. She was on a really healthy diet, so it happened that fast for her. She went from dying, to robust in 3 months by working the emotion and having the lifestyle skills. In my book, you'll read about Vince, who had late-stage MS. He was laying on his back, a quadriplegic in the Mayo Clinic. I told this story earlier in an earlier broadcast. He couldn't move his arms or legs, couldn't hold up his head, couldn't speak. And with the help of his wife, he wrote to doctors all over the world, and some of them wrote back and said, we're beginning to believe that MS is a nutritional disease. Excuse me, my face is itching. And this was like 30 years ago. And they gave him recommendations on a macrobiotic diet and supplements, mass doses, and what ones to try. And he went from a quadriplegic who's dying in the Mayo Clinic to up and dancing, touring the country, and appearing on Phil Donahue in 4 years. In 2 years, he was from quadriplegic to a wheelchair, and 2 more years he was up and dancing. And when he came bopping into my martial arts studio, I never would have known this guy had been down to quadriplegic if he hadn't pulled out the scrapbook and the news stories and the television clips. So he led me to believe that we can cure anything. So when I went down years later, I had an education from him that saved my life. I knew it was me, and I knew it was fixable, and I knew I had to make a choice. I had to jump off the cliff and quit my addictions today, or die a miserable, drawn-out death. And I was fortunate enough to manifest Patrick McEachern, who's going to have his own YouNow channel tomorrow. And he had an Eden-type garden. He had coaxed the life up out of the ground. He had worked with the worms and the divas, and just magical place. And you can see pictures of it in some of my YouTube videos. And I landed there, and we got so broke that we didn't get to go to a grocery store. For 2 weeks, all we ate was this magical food that came out of the Eden garden. Couldn't even go to Whole Foods and get a popsicle or anything. And 2 weeks of eating food, no man-made food, I got well. I was pain-free for the first time in 20 years. I came out of menopause, which everyone said was impossible. I was on Phil Donahue talking about it. I had a wild spiritual experience, which is where the title of my book, Eating My Way to Heaven, came from. It was like I was on a different frequency. And it was like waking up in a foreign country and I finally speak the language. And every bird that flew by, every billboard, every commercial was a message and I understood it. So I was on this weird spiritual high, which I wrote about in my book. And then I went on to conceive naturally and have my first baby at 47 after nearly dying from doing so much damage to myself. So we can heal from anything. But it's work. It's fairly simple, but you got to go through painful emotions and probably wrestle a handful of addictions to the ground. But I'm here to help. And I co-founded the first sugar detox center in the world. I befriended some of the top old-timer sugar detox experts, from William Dufty, who wrote Sugar Blues in 1975 after marrying Gloria Swanson, to Dr. Lyndon Smith, who appeared on Johnny Carson over 60 times. After losing his medical license for prescribing supplements, he used his sense of humor, as I've learned to talk to people about eating well and natural health and better ways of tackling disease than what he was taught in medical school. Medical profession nearly killed me, so I just had to go another direction and find a way to fix myself, and I found heaven on earth. So, you're here. Instead of me just continuing to babble, does anybody have a question I could answer about, specifically about food, health, something you're grappling with, something you'd like to understand? Chat. No? Okay, well then I guess what I want to talk about next is milk, dairy. Wow, on top of, not the top, it'd be hard to say, one of the top 3 things on my list of deadly things to consume. For many, many reasons. Let's start with, unless you're consuming expensive organic dairy products, you are on steroids and hormones and antibiotics, period. If you're a woman, an adolescent, a woman or an adolescent especially, consuming mass doses of hormones is going to screw with you. If you're in menopause, it's going to screw with you. If you're doing certain medications, it's going to screw with you. Nothing works efficiently in our bodies without hormones. It's basically the mass transit in our system. It carries things. And when you screw them up, it doesn't do it right. So the brain doesn't work, the reproductive organs don't work, the fat doesn't leave the body appropriately, shit doesn't work. So consuming artificial hormones on a daily basis or at all is crazy. So the hormones and the steroids, huge problem. So if you absolutely have to do dairy, you got to do organic. The abuse that dairy cows suffer is a huge issue for me, because I believe that the energy comes to the table. When an abused animal is part of the food supply, that energy comes to the table. And even if you don't believe that, so you don't believe there's grief and those feelings of abuse and slavery, and, dairy cows are slaves. They have no life of their own. They, just think if you were a pregnant woman and they expected you to nurse 24/7 your whole life and keep having babies as fast as you can have them. It's abuse. And so even if you don't believe that the cow has any feelings or any violence or any emotion or any abuse comes to the table, you are investing in the abuse of animals. So knowing that, there's some energy that comes to the table for you. Now, all that aside, if you don't care about the hormones and the antibiotics and the steroids, you don't care about the ethical, you don't care about what it's doing to the planet, which is a whole nother story. Here's the thing. Human beings are the only species on the planet that continues to drink milk after we're weaned. Even cows don't drink it after they're 9 months old, after they're weaned. So we weren't built for it, and we don't use it well. That's why most of the population is lactose intolerant. It's not that there's something wrong with the milk, it's that we weren't intended to consume it. It's not calcium that we can use. We can't digest and assimilate the calcium, so it becomes toxic. And it brings calories, sugar, hormones, steroids, antibiotics, and bad karma to the table. And it's fattening and addicting. So, if that isn't enough, I lived on a dairy farm for a while. And oh my God, it is a disgusting situation. The cows can barely, and some of them not even, turn around in their stall. These are and they're on concrete. And they're slaves, just stuck in the stall. If they're not hooked up to a machine that's tearing off their tits, they're in a stall. And they're sick. It's not coming out their noses. That's why we have to just keep hammering with antibiotics. And they outweigh me by 1,500, 2,000 pounds, and they're terrified of me. Because they're slaves who are drugged and sick in bondage. And then we're going to take what comes out of them and consume it and think it's a healthy thing. So that's my rap about dairy. And, I could go on and on, but that should be enough to get you started thinking about it. There's great products to replace it with. I drink everything from organic almond milk, I've got some oat milk in there right now, hemp milk, almond, what did I miss? Soy is a dangerous product. Definitely has to be organic because they have genetically modified almost all of it. But the almond is good. Coconut, that's what I was missing. Coconut milk is a great substitute. In cereal, in coffee, to bake with. You don't have to kill yourself with animal products and hormones. So, I would go there. It's getting late, and I have a school-age child here. I think I'm going to attempt to play one more song. Sometimes I get nervous and screw up because I'm just a beginner. But I think I'm going to play a song, and unless anybody has a question that pops up in the chat window so that I can know that you really want this information and there's something I can specifically help you with, then I'm going to sign off. So let me give it a shot and see if I can play In the Garden for you. Because my best advice for anyone who wants to lose weight, have better mental health, better sex life, cure cancer, diabetes, heart disease, whatever it is, get in the garden. harder songs. Like I said, I've only been playing for 2 months, and when I rented this harp, I believed that I could learn to play it well enough to perform in 2 months, and I've been performing my musical comedy around Portland this weekend at a ball. So since you guys stuck around this long, guys, gals, I apologize, don't know who's there actually, I'll go ahead and do my musical comedy joke with the harp, and then I'm going to bed. So, we're in the middle of this election, and we got Trump and Hillary, right? And I'll tell you about Hillary some other day, but Trump is an idiot. And his views on terrorism are ridiculous. I graduated with honors from one of the top bodyguard schools in the world, and I studied anti-terrorism. And I'll tell you this about terrorism. With ISIS, the guys with the biggest guns, those are the bad guys. And you put together your plan to deal with the bad guys. But American terrorists are way different. They're way more subtle. And I think you'll see that we can't build a wall to keep ourselves safe from these guys. So I'm going to share with you an actual transmission. Ezekiel, would you? You can't hear me. My son's got the headphones on. I'm going to share with you an actual transmission that was broadcast by American terrorists. And I think you'll see the very subtle difference of terrorism here and terrorism there. Ask your doctor if Shantex is right for you. The side effects include, but are not limited to, nausea, vomiting, sleep problems, constipation, anxiety, hostility, panic attacks, aggressive behaviors, suicidal thoughts, depression, life-threatening skin allergies, and if you get an erection that lasts more than 4 hours, call your doctor, because this is a drug that's supposed to help you quit smoking. So if you've had an erection for 4 hours, well, hey, cool. It's all you. It's a bona fide boner. But chances are, after a 4-hour boner, you're going to need a cigarette, thanks to the company that sold you a drug to help you quit smoking. And that is how terrorism goes stateside. So that's part of my musical comedy routine. And starting next week, we're going to have the musical comedy quiz show, where I will play and sing a list of ingredients, and you'll try and guess the toxic product. So I'm having fun. It's comedy, it's life coaching, and it's music. And I hope you'll join me. I'll be here every night, unless shit happens, at 11, and Sundays at 3. So I'll try one more song. I have a small repertoire for a beginning, but let's see if I can get this one out, and then I truly am going to bed. Love you guys. Really appreciate you being here. Ezekiel. Yo. I'm broadcasting and trying to play. Could you stop it with the puppet for a minute? Thank you. Harp is kind of out of tune, so I apologize, but I've been working on it for hours. I can't seem to get it totally tuned, so whatever. Whoops. Can't see, sorry. pain. Can't see, sorry. I got lost, sorry. I can't see with the lights up here. I'm going to have to adjust that. I'm working on Over the Rainbow, so. I'm also working on Moon River and The Entertainer, so hopefully tomorrow night I'll be more rested and I'll be able to pump out a couple of better songs for you. But rest is also an important part of natural health, so I'm going to bed. I hope I'll see you all back here tomorrow at 11. Not tomorrow, because tomorrow's Friday. Sunday at 3, Mondays through Thursday at 11 p.m. I will be here chatting it up about health. Doing some musical comedy and trying to pump out some serious songs. So, God bless you and good night. I can figure this out. I'm new at this too.